Apologies, we were just dealing with some technical issues again. And somebody, I think, yep, okay. So with that, I'm sorry, we're starting a little bit late, but now I think we're ready. So I would like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Monday, February 26th. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thank you for your patience. I know we have a very packed agenda tonight, so I'm going to waive my first Selectwoman's comments, but I would like to make a motion to open up the agenda to add 3 new items, including a resolution to regarding police staffing, an item concerning the awarding of a builder's risk policy for the new school project, and to amend the consent agenda. So can I get a second to open up the agenda?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, great. So now what I'd like to do is make a motion to add the following items to the agenda. Add item 3B, which is discuss and take action to approve a resolution regarding staffing for the Madison Police Department. And add item 3C, discuss and take action to approve awarding a builder's risk insurance policy for the new elementary school project on Lumbertown Road to Gilbane Construction in the amount of $162,461, and to authorize the first selectman to sign all necessary documents and contracts associated with this award, and to thirdly amend item 6E of the consent agenda to include approve the disposition of 2 police vehicles no longer in service per the disposition of town property policy.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, great. Any discussion about adding this to the agenda? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so now we've added these items to the agenda. So now I'd like, moving on to, we're still on item 3. I'd like to move on to item 3B and make a motion to discuss and take action to approve the following resolution regarding staffing for the Madison Police Department. So I'd like to read this resolution and then the board can discuss it and kind of the thinking behind it. Whereas the Board of Selectmen is committed to providing a safe community for all its residents and recognizes recent criminal activities in our town are alarming and require action. And whereas the Board of Selectmen has supported the efforts of the Madison Police Department to address public safety concerns and meet departmental requests through many different initiatives. These include the previous funding of 2 new police officers in the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget, offering enhanced compensation through a new collective bargaining agreement in 2023 to attract and retain officers, upgrading the police vehicle fleet, purchasing advanced speed tracking monitors, upgrading the police locker room facilities, and most recently funding new camera and license plate reader technology. And whereas the Board of Selectmen supports the Board of Police Commissioners and the MPD's goal of steadily expanding the number of patrol officers over the next few years to address rising criminal activity on the shoreline and meet the concerns of our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Selectmen remains committed to providing the MPD with necessary resources by including in its recommended fiscal year 2024-2025 budget the hiring and training of 3 new police officers in 2024 to fill existing vacancies, the additional hiring of 1 new police officer in January 2025, and recommends the inclusion of a second new police officer in the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget.
Second that.
Yep.
Okay, so with that, for discussion, I know that we've gotten a lot of comments from the community with concerns about police staffing. I know the chief has spoken to us many times about trying to incrementally add police officers over the next few years to get our the department up to staffing levels that's going to be appropriate for the town. And I think there's just been some confusion around timing of this, and I think the discussion has been to do this incrementally, and that's what this board is supporting on our budget. So I thought it would be good, and I know Bruce had reached out to me about this. We wanted to address this and make sure people understand that we're still committed to adding officers and very supportive of the department. So if any other board members would like to comment.
No, I mean, just absolutely. Public safety, I think, is paramount for all of us. And when Chief Drum presented his budget, and we had zero pushback from board members on any of the requests that he put forward in his budget. And, we're recommending them all, and he included the piece that he would be hiring or looking to hire a new officer, a second new officer in next year's budget. And, again, we were all, seemingly supportive of that. So I think we're moving in the right direction.
I think, we heard the presentation, and the back end loading of a police officer is a little unusual. The January request for a new hire like that is more in line because the budget goes in place, and then he or the department head can go and recruit and hire during the fiscal year. And as Peggy and I talked about this, we realized that it was a good thing to signal our support publicly so that the police commission and the police chief could begin their recruiting process with some certainty that they had our support for that ad that he mentioned in his presentation. So this is a way of just giving them the assurance they can go out in good faith and look for that new recruit to start as early in the year as possible. And certainly we appreciate the challenge that the chief has, that every police department has these days in recruiting good candidates and keeping them. So wish him the best of luck on the openings he's got. And hopefully we'll be talking about, 4 recent onboards and a new one to come.
And I think that is the challenge and why we're trying to be practical about hiring timing is it's really hard to hire police officers right now. And when you do, you have to go through a lot of, especially if they're people who are new into police services. So they have to go through extensive training. So we're trying to be realistic about what the department can absorb and how successful we're going to be in terms of actually meeting our recruitment goals. So
I think we all understand how important feeling safe is to the members of our community. And frankly, I can't think of any town department where we have recently directed more additional resources than the police department.
I think that's right. Yeah, I think that's right, Al. I think, at the end of the day, I think we as a Board of Selectmen, by this resolution, by our actions in the past, are very serious about safety and the community recommendations, the sentiment of the community. Listen, this is a statewide issue that's going on right now. This is not necessarily something that's unique to Madison, but we're being proactive. We're taking it seriously, and we're dealing with the recommendations of our police department. I mean, in fairness, the police department asked for in the budget one additional officer through the additional budget request. So we acted accordingly. I think we're now taking an additional signal based on some of the community input to really to take an extra step and lead here. And I think that's important.
Hey, we're just confirming what we've already talked about. We are supportive of that too. The chief wants to get to 32 officers. We're at 30 now, and the pathway is there to get to 32 officers. So any other comments or from the board on this? And then, so with that, then again, all in favor of the resolution of the Madison Board of Selectmen, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Well, great. And we'll submit this to the Board of Finance as they will be deliberating themselves on the budget and can take this into consideration. The other item then is item 3C, which we added to the agenda, and I'll just quickly go through this. I'd like to make a motion to discuss and take action to approve awarding a builder's risk insurance policy for the new elementary school project on Mungertown Road to Gilbane Construction in the amount of $162,461, and to authorize the first selectman to sign all necessary associated contracts and documents associated with this.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, great, and basically this, I don't know if Deborah's on.
She is.
Okay, great, maybe she can just give you a quick overview of this. Kind of came about quickly because they were not getting a lot of responses for bidders. So can you, Deborah, are you on?
Not yet. Come.
Oh, there we go. Okay, great. Go ahead, Deborah, you can unmute yourself.
Oops, okay, I'm here.
Yep,
Yes, we were having trouble getting quotes for the builder's risk insurance for the new elementary school. We did get the one from Gilbane, and then we had a hard time getting a second one. The second one just came in on Friday, and the levels of insurance for each of the different coverage topics are not as good or as high as Gilbane. And as such, we would have to go out and get a supplemental policy to cover for the builder's risk insurance if we do not go with Gilbane.
and I think the hope had been that we would have this, when we did all the policies on Wednesday, but they just hadn't gotten the responses yet. Colliers is recommending that we move forward with this policy, and we just need to get it in place so they can start working this week. So if there are any additional questions on this?
Deborah, this is Al. Who do we look to for advice on what the correct policy limits are for these policies?
We used our insurance broker, which is Dan Anderson through HD Seeger. And he was the one that has looked over all of these quotes to make sure that the town is covered.
Thank you, Deb.
Okay, any other questions? All in favor of approving item 3C, say aye.
Aye.
Great, all right, thank you, appreciate that, guys. And then I think the final thing,
Retirements.
no, the.
Cruisers?
Wait, do I do this now?
Well, it would be in the
Oh,
consent,
just
you added
amend
it to.
it. Yeah, I
you-
just,
you
yeah, I
added
can
it to
do
the
it, yeah,
consent.
so, I just want to, move to item 6 and make a motion to, amend the consent agenda. Or I already added that, Lee.
We already did that. It's
We
already
already did,
16.
yeah, so we just vote on the consent agenda
When we
as
get to
amended,
it,
that's
yeah.
right, good. Lost track of stuff here, okay, thank you with that, okay. So, moving on, are there any liaison reports or selectmen comments, understanding that we've got quite a packed agenda tonight, so. No?
I'll pass.
Okay, all right, so, we will move on to citizens' comments. We'll dedicate a few minutes to this, because I know we have a number of people here, looking to speak and give presentations, several groups tonight, so it's a pretty packed agenda, but, we'll open it up. Are there any hands here, any citizen comments in the room? Okay, oh, yes, of course.
Hi, I'm Henry Griggs, I live on Warpus Road, and I just wanted to come in person to thank you all for giving me the privilege, the honor of serving as your municipal historian. 2 sentences, the big picture in my view is to get all the groups to work together. And one way I do that is to serve on all their boards simultaneously, so. No pressure. I know, glutton for punishment. And I'd like to announce that we have one citizen in town who has received a homeowner's tax credit that has covered 30% of the cost of painting her historic house on the post road. So I'd like to see many more of those. There are about 100 properties in town that qualify, so that's number 1.
That's great.
Only 99 to go.
Well, thank you for your
Thanks, Eric.
service.
Thank you.
And, we're grateful we can reappoint you on the consent agenda. So, I know we have some hands raised, so, Jeannie, we'll take a few comments from the public, and just please state your name, address, and, just brief remarks, because we'll have to go through this pretty quickly tonight. So go ahead.
Hi, it's Jim Ferenczi, 47 Seaview. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want to thank the Board of Selectmen for the strong statement that was just made and the resolution that was passed in support of public safety. Obviously, there's been a lot of us that have been talking to various town officials about this topic for a couple of years. This is a major step in the right direction. It's a very positive statement. We all confront this issue as citizens of our town, so it's very important to all of us, including all the people in the room and all the people that might be here via Zoom. So I just want to express my gratitude. There's still more work to do, I think, for all of us, but this is a significant step and it's very positive. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. With another hand raised.
Hi, Jim.
Hi.
Hi, state your name and address, please, for the record.
It's Jim Schmaltz from Jonathan's Landing. And I had gone over, had a chance to go through the Carbon Point again over the weekend and had a couple of concerns on it. I talked to Scott about it earlier today and sent him some info. But the concerns were the seating being concrete, if they were doing anything special to keep that from heating up. I'll just run through the concerns and you can talk about it after. And then the way the decking looks like it's done, if there was any drainage planned for it or any way to keep it from filling up over the winter and icing over. It didn't look like there was a big space there or any way for it to effectively drain out. And then there was a concern about if we were going to have railings along the seawall now, which is, would fall under a zoning question, but it wasn't in the presentation. So I wasn't sure on that one. And then the big concern I had was since the seawall is being raised and the elevations are being raised, you have a seat wall that people can sit on, and then a higher berm with grasses that's gonna encroach on the sight line as people are sitting at the picnic tables. Because it's coming up about 40 something inches, which is eye level of where that's gonna be. And I didn't know if that was considered or addressed earlier on somewhere. And
Okay.
that's what I had for you.
Okay, great. Those are interesting comments. I think it's later on the agenda that we talk about this. And certainly we can try to get answers from the consultants for some of those, but I know pretty confident that there's reasonable responses to each of those issues. So thank you for raising those. I think we've got one more hand raised, and then I think we should probably move on to our meeting. So.
Hello?
Yes, please, Andrea, state your name.
Yes, Mastaloni, 36 Concord Drive. I have a couple things to say, and I think as a female, a woman, a mother of daughters and children in this town and state, I really do appreciate you guys addressing the public safety concern. But I think we need to do a better job of making it more transparent to the community. And, not just where your keys in the car, lock it, or we need to know what's happening. We cannot trust. I'm not going to go into the media situation, but we can't trust them to tell us where the person was from. We know we have a border issue through the United States of America, and we know it's settling into all of our little New England towns. I won't go to Branford Walmart anymore. I'm starting to feel trapped within my own state and afraid to go to certain places. I know there are many more like me. We depend on you guys really to bring this to the forefront and tell us what is happening. And I would just ask for you to be a little more thoughtful I know you're trying, think about what it really does to your citizens when they're so afraid. And, this weekend was lovely in our town, and it was Pleasantville running down our main street, but that's not every day. And just asking you to consider a little more about how we feel in this town. We have one of the biggest state parks. We deal with a lot of additional citizens in the summer, and it can be scary for us. And that's not racist. I'm afraid. Just saying those words. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you for your comment. So I think with that, we will close public comment now. And move on to, I totally lost item number 6, which is the consent agenda. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the amended consent agenda as presented to the Board of Selectmen.
Second?
Any further comments or questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Thank you. Okay, now, we have a patient group here. I want to welcome up the board members from the ABC House to give a presentation about the ABC House, the history and its role in Madison. So I want to welcome Kevin Kranzler and some of your other board members to come up and, or is this going to be a PowerPoint presentation, just going to talk?
I do
or-
have one, yeah.
Yeah, so what
Okay.
I can do a brief introduction
Okay.
of who's here, and then I want to be very careful. First of all, I want to, before we begin, I want to thank the board, I want to thank First Selectmen, Lions, Board of Selectmen, and women. Thank you for your time. I really do appreciate it. Want to be very brief. Really, what the intent of today is really more of an informational outreach to the board, really to help give our community, the broader community, a better understanding about what our program is, who we are, what we do, and really just really begin a dialogue and really continue a dialogue that had begun 52 years ago when our program first was established. So with that, that's going to go down the line here. You guys can introduce yourselves. So.
Hi, I'm Tom Pergolto, I'm Vice President, and I'm a former president of ABC.
Chris McSweeney, I'm head of Scholar Affairs. I'm Chris Ryan, I am the HR board member.
I'm Katie Patla, I'm one of the Scholar Selection co-chairs.
We also have a
Bill's
former
here.
president.
Stapleford, former president of the board and a current member of the renovation committee for the building, for the house.
So we thank you for your time. So we're going to be incredibly brief. So I'm going to kick it to Kate, who's just going to share a brief presentation to give you.
I got it.
And I
talk.
I'm thinking if you're gonna talk to it, do you mind if I put the podium over here? Because it's easier for the camera to focus up
Yeah,
here.
sure.
And then, they can run it that way. You can look at that screen and, all right, you know, it's easy. I see. This is how rules are.
Your job is.
Yeah. Everything is super official, so, and that'll just make it a little easier for,
We have a short, will this play the volume in here? In a minute?
You never know.
We'll figure that out, and I got 3
You know, I
slides to
don't-
go. to figure
Yeah,
it
I
out.
don't know about how that works with audio on,
If it doesn't work, we don't need
Yeah,
to show it.
yeah, I think. it would be-
later too.
Yeah, it's,
Because you're sharing, right? You're screen sharing, because you're not plugged in, it might be.
Yeah, it's a really good 3-minute.
Of course.
Okay.
okay, so, to just give you a little background, and Tom, you're gonna jump in if I need help with the history of it. But beginning in 1963, A Better Chance was formed nationally. It was a national program designed right around the civil rights movement to give young men and women of color better opportunities to attend high school, specifically somewhere different than their own town, to give them literally a better chance, ABC. So we've been in operation for 52 years, right, in Madison. So really right after this started, Madison jumped on board with Priscilla
Yes.
McManus, sorry, 54 years. This is the 54th year. I came when it was 52. You're right. I've been doing this for 2 years. So through a lot of work for a lot of people in this town and a little bit of a crazy time, A Better Chance was established here, and the house is called the Roby House. It's on the corner of Durham and Green Hill. There are only 18 ABC houses left in the United States, with most of them concentrated in the Northeast, and there's several in Connecticut. Guilford has a girls' house, but there's other boys' houses. So why isn't it going? There we go. Oops. Oh, God, of course. I can't see it, but you guys can. Okay, so our program is called the Community School Program, a CSP. because our kids live, we call them our scholars, they live in the home, in the Roby House, but attend a public high school. So we're not a boarding school, but we're in competition with those boarding schools, with Loomis, with Hotchkiss, Salisbury, all of them. So that's who we're up against right now, because we're a unicorn, kind of. I think people are wowed by the private schools, you know, when they walk onto campus, you can't help but feel important, but we are very biased in thinking that a community school program is really the way to go. The children are still treated as children with layers and layers of support to transition them, we think, perfectly to college. Why is this growing?
It's the time.
I can't look, I can't see it on my computer, so I don't know what I'm advancing.
I've had that problem too when you screen share, sometimes it doesn't, so maybe unshare and then pull it back up.
Is there like an arrow in here? I can see my mouse. If I wasn't a teacher, I'd be dying right now of embarrassment that this wasn't working.
CSP.
Can you?
Yeah, take it.
Can you unshare
I
it
can
though?
talk maybe a little bit, just to kind
Yeah.
of help, just give you guys a sense of who we are, and thank you, Kate.
Yeah, keep going. I'll
So
just
she
figure it
has
out.
a wonderful presentation set up, and it's really geared towards our scholar selection process. We wanted to kind of gear it a little bit more towards, just to kind of get a sense of who we are. So a couple of things I want to share today is really stress the importance of our program to the community. 50 plus years within Madison. And one of the things that I've learned, so it's my third year as board president, fourth year as a member of the program, are the relationships that have been established over these past 50 years. I think Bruce had mentioned that, he remembers, when he was in school, the ABC program. So
Not quite 60 years ago.
yeah, not 60, but yeah, but the point being is that we've been as much a part of this community as I think you can make an argument, any organization in town.
So that's probably what's causing the problem, because I know we've had that happen before, the video, is that was.
I didn't try to play it yet.
No, but even then, I think having it in it, so we can see if it works, but that might be why it's kind of,
Okay.
because I remember that happening. with
Thanks for my
another-
lifeline, Kevin. Let me try to play the video. Okay, I'll try. Not hearing it.
Oh, that will work.
It's a great environment to be comfortable in, make new friends.
Madison ABC scholars are selected from schools in the Northeast that are socioeconomic. Those students are able to come here and in and out of class for pursuits of
iPhone. Yeah, that's really a recruitment.
View
Yeah,
yourself.
Help you get your cable.
I am, but I'm hitting X. Why don't I remember? Okay, dear Jesus, this is a nightmare. Okay, we use that video. We use that video to recruit or show our scholars, to show them all the sides of it. So, did you want to say something before I continue?
No, you continue. I'm just here,
Okay.
I'm here for moral support.
So when I call over here, so we play on the ABC, right? A is our achievement. We're really proud of what we can get or what the students achieve, but with layers of support. So it's up there, you can see what we offer the kids, but part of their scholarship value includes tutors that are paid for, SAT tutoring, ACT tutoring, advisors at the school, academic advisors, as well as their guidance counselors, professional college planning by a professional college planner, but it's for free to the scholars. It's part of their package. So that gets our kids to go to school. Emily just got accepted at Vassar, our senior, his #1 choice, and he'll be fencing there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So we really pride ourselves on getting these kids to their fullest potential, but they work for it. They work super hard. The B is brotherhood and family. We can have up to 6 scholars in the house. Right now, there's 5. 2 resident staff, Adriana and Trey, are young adults themselves, young professionals, but they are the parents in the home 24/7 to 5 teenage boys, ages 14 to 17. There's a chef that comes 5 nights a week to cook for the boys, real healthy meals. We have a mentorship program. We do home activities together. There's pictures there, game nights. It's really, Adriana and Trey have really pride themselves on it being a family. They call the van the family car when they go somewhere. So, and then the C is for community. The kids have school friends. They have them over the house. They have fire pit nights. They're involved in fundraisers that they plan. That basketball tournament we had, thank you for helping us with it. It was a huge success. It's gonna be bigger and better. They volunteer at the Cove every year. They're involved with their host families. So they really are a part of this community, and they have been for over 50 years. And we really want them to know the community better and the community to know them better too. That's why we're reaching out a little bit. So our plug for a CSP, because we realize we lose kids to private schools every year to places like Choate and Loomis. But we really believe our model is the best because we can deliver such a personalized experience for these boys as they age and mature from 8th grade to a senior in high school when they're ready to go out. They're one of 6, not one of 600 in a boarding school, or one of the freshman class of 600 at somewhere else. So, they get we call it a scholarship because they get their per pupil price paid for, all the operating costs of the house. It's considered in there, their meals, their fees for sporting events, for teams are paid for. So they are, layers of support. So when you look at that, I'm just gonna put the list of names up there, and I'm sure you realize them. Our executive board is mostly here. Stephanie's not here. Neil is not here. But this is our board. And these are all the areas that need to be addressed for free by the board for people that have full-time jobs, and then dedicate themselves to this cause too. Because it's not just housing 5 boys in a house and sending them off to their teachers. It is publicizing our stuff, getting gifts, recruiting memberships, taking care of the building and grounds, putting the Wi-Fi in the house, getting computers for them, finding host families. Making the video play. Where's my IT guy?
Well,
Where's Steve?
I want to say about that video, which is important to mention. That was actually
Students
created by
made it.
one of our scholars.
The scholars, right?
Graduated.
Yeah.
It was really good video.
Yeah,
That's very
Well
cool.
Yeah, we have to have enrichment activities for them to do the college planning. So it's layers and layers deep of people that give selflessly to these boys. There we go. So we have members at large. Bill's here. There, Bill. And then we also have a giant advisory board. So these people we look to for their expertise. We have people within the school system. There's coaches. There's medical professionals. So we use them as advisories, when we need help and need advice, and they're there to offer us their time too. So there's a lot of people dedicated to these boys and their success, and we're super proud of it, and we just need it. We want it to continue. Act 2 thrift shop. donates most of their proceeds, right? I don't know exactly how much.
100%.
100% of them, okay, to the ABC house. And Priscilla started that also,
Yeah.
I believe, and still does it.
Well, I want to mention something about Priscilla real quick, because Priscilla McManus is one of the most incredible citizens that this town has had. She's been incredibly selfless, whether it's with Act Two, which is also a nonprofit, which has been supporting our operating budget for as long as Act Two has been
20
around.
years.
20 years.
It's the 20th year.
Yeah. So, and she's also one of the founders along with Linda Lee Ludwig. So two tremendous women who came on the heels of the civil rights movement and really made an impact in this town. So the way we're looking at it today is that they really took this ball 50 years. And now now we're kind of moving towards the next 50 years of this organization. And to kick off that 50-year, which timing's slightly off, but we're pretty close. We're kicking off a $500,000 investment renovation inside the home. So the house you saw today is not going to be the house you're going to see in the fall. And this is another reason why we're reaching out to you folks, in that just letting you know that we are, we intend to continue and remain relevant in town, investing our own funds, which is 100% driven by volunteers. All proceeds with ADC go directly back into the program. And I can go on and on, but what I'd like to do, and I would respect your time, because we do have a couple of advisory members on the board with Peggy and Al. So I'd like to open up the questions about our program. I think it'd be a better way for you guys to get a feel, or in the community, for who we are. But we're really appreciative of the time today, and really appreciative of the community for supporting our organization for over 50 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, we have members that are happy to answer anything.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for the presentation. My involvement has been more just attending the annual meetings and learning about it, because it's something I wasn't familiar with until I got into this office. But I know, Kevin, you and I had gotten together with Scott and kind of brainstormed a bit, how can we continue to support this initiative? There's a transition going on within the organization, and make sure that we can sustain this for the future. And so there's a lot of different things we talked about, how the town can help, how the community can help. And we want to continue that dialogue, I think, and come up with some real, focused ways that we can provide assistance.
If I could just say, Peggy, because I think it's important that, I know, diversity is a buzzword that people like to talk about, and certainly we support diversity within our program. I think it's obvious. But to us, it's much more personal. These are young men, and they're walking day to day, with that understanding of, talking about a unicorn, of being a unicorn in the town of Madison. And that's why it's so critically important we have the layers of support. And even with all of our layers, it's still not a guarantee of success. And that's why I think more than ever, we're talking with you folks today, and that really trying to put ABC back on the map as far as an awareness in this community. We're always looking for volunteers. We're always looking for benefactors, anybody who really sees the value of this program. Which I think is really, I don't think it's priceless. You really couldn't put a number on it. And, it's so personal to all of us, especially given the fact that we have a relationship with the boys. And again, just want to thank you for your time, and any questions you may have and ways you can help us. Our ears are open.
If I could just jump in briefly, the name in there, it's a better chance, and it's an opportunity for these young men to get, we're all blessed to live in this great town, and our kids are blessed to grow up in this town, and a lot of people don't have those same opportunities. And so on the one hand, it's an opportunity for these kids who are coming from difficult situations. But on the flip side, these kids give so much to our own kids. We live in a town that's very similar. Everybody's the same. These kids come from a very, very different background. And so our kids get to experience what they've seen through their eyes, which they might not otherwise get if we didn't have this program. So while it's an opportunity to give a chance to these kids, they bring so much to the community. And for 52 years or 54 years, the community has supported this program. I mean, there are, if you talk to any host families that did it in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, these kids are still part of their family. These kids are still coming to the weddings and the graduations and Christmas and Hanukkah and whatever else happens. the relationships, I mean, that's really the key to this organization is the relationships it develops. And it bridges gaps that wouldn't be bridged, but for the opportunity that this organization provides, not only to the kids, but to the town as a whole. So there's so much give and take and so much positive flowing in every direction that it's something that as a community, when I was president, I would always say that I'm so proud that we live in a community that allows this organization to happen. And I feel that way today. And because again, we benefit from it as much as the kids do. So I just wanted to point that out.
I'm just gonna say quickly, I remember first learning about ABC House through the Newcomers Club when I moved here, and then same with Act Two Thrift Shop. So I don't know if you guys still give presentations to the Newcomers Club, but I definitely recommend it.
It's happening, yeah.
And the other question I have is, as families in town move up into the high school age system, how do they find out about becoming host families?
Yeah, we do that literally through just word of mouth and just, it typically we would love for it to be a boy, an 8th grade boy and his family, so that they are just more comfortable with, because the house is all boys.
Right.
So our numbers are low. I mean, when you take a class that has 180 kids and half of them are boys, and say 80 kids and 80 families that we can work with, there's not that many, so it's a lot of word of mouth. It's a lot of trying to talk to the principals to see if they can send out like a backpack express, or just, that we are recruiting, we want families, we want to talk to them about the program and just see, who'd be interested in it. We typically love a 4-year commitment, but we know that that's not always the case for some families.
Do you ever go to the meetings for the kids as they're in 8th grade and getting ready to go into high school,
So
when they
can I-
have the family meeting?
So I work in the middle school, and Missy Hartman, my co-chair, also does. So we are starting to be better at that. So we have a list of 8th grade families.
Yeah.
We've gone to Catherine Hart. She's given us permission to contact them, and through Backpacks Express. So it's gotten a little more formalized. Only Chris, you in the past day. That's why you didn't know that. That's why Missy has the list, right? Yeah. And Kim Shorney is our host family person. So she is the person in charge of finding host families and vetting them and getting them to meet the families and pairing them up. But so Kim's working with Missy on that, but it just really just got way more streamlined in the past day with Catherine's agreement that we can approach the families now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
I think add that, and also maybe Jen give you a little more about it, is that the pandemic really put our program, it stopped everything cold for a couple of years. And so we're now at this point where, advancing the home renovation and really trying to expand our profile in town to make sure we are reaching out to the right, programs, schools, to ensure that we are, getting those volunteers. So we're really at that, really kind of that second phase now, really trying to reintroduce who we are and make those relationships, because the last during the pandemic, it really kind of, a lot of valves got shut down. And so really kind of rebuilding it and driving it for the future.
But even so, it just I myself didn't even know about the program until my own kids got into the high school, so our goal is to, let families know with little kids that there's, there's so many opportunities to mentor, or just, give a ride to one of the boys to practice or whatever, if there's a mom that's going there or what, so we just want to, more exposure to the house for, kids of all ages and families of all ages.
Great, wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for the time.
This is
Thank you.
seriously
Yeah.
incredible. And maybe just one other comment. I had obviously the opportunity to spend a little time with Kevin, and obviously I know Tom pretty well, and most of you guys actually. And I'm blown away with the success of the program. I didn't realize how long it had been here, for one. And it is part of the fabric of our community. And I think we don't spend enough time on this board probably talking about those things that are important to the fabric of our community. And it's a powerful, I think, lesson for all of us to be thinking about here, and how maybe we leverage it and expand it and market it, help you guys. So I guess I'm spinning this back to a question, but what help can the town give you guys? What are some things that you guys are already thinking about that maybe we can offer some help, suggestions, support, whatever?
And even if it's the town website, I don't know, but.
I think the first thing is just step one is just engagement and being open to us and who we are. I think that's step one, which is seems like occurring right now. And then I would ask you to really think about the different programs in town that may be able to support us, or ways that you think that the town of Madison can support us. We work within the school system on a daily basis. All of the one thing about our scholars, which is amazing, and they're the most courageous people, at least children in this town, because imagine those that have children or have older children. Can you imagine putting your 8th grade child, making a decision to make a commitment to a town away from your home? So you got to think about it. Think of where that parent's coming from. That's a choice. I'm not gonna say, I don't want to go as far as desperation, but it's scary. It is very scary. And so these are tremendously courageous young men. And so I would ask, what programs do we have in town? What are the things that we're doing in town? And really to advance that outreach. We do have a very large advisory committee. And certainly we'll ask if we need, but we're always open, the door's always open at ABC. So I guess I kind of put it back to you, Scott, and say, how can you help us? Because, we are, some of the concerns that I have just as board president is, Kate mentioned we have a relationship with National. National has been steering away, which is why we're seeing community school programs really fail. And, we are not at a point of failure, but if I look out a couple of years, I do worry about, our ability to sustain this program. And I don't want to see Madison being one of those programs that doesn't make it. So so basically, that's what brings us here today, to make sure that there's a commitment from this community to continue to maintain and sustain this program. It's such a rich and valuable program that it really is priceless. And I think that step one is just letting people know who we are, because that's the one thing I've run into in my time on the board, is that you start talking to folks in the community, there's a very little understanding about what we are. So we have a responsibility to really advance and market ourselves.
Especially the younger fans.
Yeah. But I appreciate, Scott, your conversations, or our conversations, and Peggy as well.
Kevin, I have a small idea to answer Scott's question.
Okay.
I think one thing we can do, those of us sitting up at this table, is to help give the program some more visibility to a wider Madison audience. I think the high school folks, parents and kids know about it, but there's a whole segment of this community that doesn't. I was thinking about a small idea of perhaps once a year having our ABC students come to a selectmen meeting and be introduced to the community.
Yeah.
Great.
It's a great idea.
And that might be a good experience for them, but it would be a way to reach a much wider audience and remind everybody about the merits of this program.
I think that'd be great, Al, because, one of the things that even when I talk to the boys, and I'm not going to talk about anything personal, but there's this general concern about, does the community care about us? Do they care about us? And that's a hard answer, obviously from my standpoint. Of course we care about you. But, when they're going, matriculating back and forth to the school, I'm not going to pretend that there aren't things that occur in the school system, outside the school system, in people's homes they've been exposed to. And it's hurtful to them. And it's also honestly, a reality check for everybody in this room, that this is a constant growth process, in that, really everyone's got to check themselves to some degree, because anybody who believes in diversity, who believes in the importance of supporting people who are disadvantaged, we're here. And like I said, 100% of your proceeds go directly to these young men. And, whether it's Vassar this year for our senior Hanley, and who came to this program, never heard of fencing, or at least never had an awareness of fencing, joined as a freshman, and is a champion level fencer, which he is now going to be fencing in Vassar.
That's awesome.
There's no way that happens, if he remains where he was. And year before, our senior year before, is at Rutgers University. We have a student at BC.
Yes.
Yeah. So, we're placing them in these great schools, and really with the goal of ultimately, this is how I look at it, is creating future leaders who have established relationships, that, maybe wouldn't have been available, to start bridging some of the gaps that we are struggling with as a nation. And my feeling has always been, everything starts at the community level, right? If you have concerns, start right here in your own backyard, because there are at any given time 5 or 6 boys who you can help, and that's a lifetime of help, because who knows what these young men are going to achieve in their future. And to me, it's really boundless, especially given the resources this town provides. And I'll go as far as, internships, right? So it doesn't even end at the high school level. What about our graduating seniors? Internships availability. There's a lot of finance people, a lot of people in all different businesses that can support and provide opportunities, to continue to advance their education. And again, to really provide this leadership that I think is a leadership void in our country personally. And I think there's nothing better than starting in your own backyard.
Al, long ago, when you were first selectman, you did invite us in, and I presented to the board. It was a brilliant idea.
Well, I was gonna suggest a bike sale, but.
Yeah. I remember that bike.
Here you go.
Here's the flyer. Flyer. Well, I think Kevin, that was very well said. I don't think any of us could have said it better, actually, about the value of the program and the value to the community, to all of us benefiting from the program. So I think that, and we will continue the conversation and look forward to inviting, maybe we do it with the new scholars coming in, the team in September, welcoming them to the beginning of their new, obviously the ones that are there as well, but just in having an opportunity to meet the board and also recognize that we as community leaders are excited and proud that they're here with us. So that's a nice idea.
And follow their Facebook page. If you're on Facebook, because the bike sale's coming up and they're taking connecting kayak.
Yeah.
I like.
Getting a little bit.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you. So, all right, so, our next agenda item, I was just wondering, Jean, is Andrew on? Is it under a different name? So, the next item on our agenda is,
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
yeah, to discuss with the Economic Development Commission, their commission goals and objectives. And, they have a newly elected chair, Andrew Wood, who I know is in the UK right now. But he said he would make sure, it was very late for him, he was going to attend this, and that's why I was just surprised. I texted him. And I'm wondering if he's under some other name. If Andrew is on here, raise your hand, because we're not recognizing. And I don't see any other, were they aware it was on tonight's agenda?
Unless he had link
Yes.
issues.
Yeah.
You could have had the old one.
Well, for the sake of time,
Yeah.
maybe we
We can
table
have-
it for the moment. If he
Yeah.
puts his hand up, we can always come back to it, but
Yeah, why don't we do that? So we're gonna table the commission goals and objectives. I know Aaron is on here, but and then the next item is actually, and if you could bring up Aaron, this specifically relates to something that they had recommended to us, so we'll move on to item number 9. And that is discuss a recommendation from the Economic Development Commission to approve an application from Saltwater Property Group LLC and Saltwater Property Group 2 LLC under the Town of Madison Tax Incentive Assessment Deferral Program for an assessment deferral of no more than 5 years. So this is a application that the town received. This relates to a tax incentive policy that had been passed by the Board of Selectmen 4 years ago, and then it was kind of updated a little bit the year after that. And then we've had 2 successful applicants that did get tax deferrals approved. And now this is a 3rd application. And so the EDC, I know you got in your packet, they had strongly recommended that we would approve this and move forward the process. Tonight is discussion only. And then the next time we would vote, the process would be go to Board of Finance, and then it would go to town meeting. So I don't know, is Erin? She's coming up. Okay, great. She can maybe just spend a second giving a brief overview of the project. Erin, you're still hanging on?
Hi, I think you could probably hear me. I'm driving in New Haven. I'm sorry, I didn't expect to be on the call.
Yeah, this is a long one. So, maybe just give a 2-second about the project, and because I guess the EDC is not attending and it could be just because we had a bad link and everything, there might have been some confusion, but and be safe, but
So roughly, this was a project that, as part of the ordinances, does require that they've received all their municipal approvals through the regulatory boards, which has been done. The project was unanimously approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and actually has a regulated activity permit as well from inland wetlands. It's basically a 3-story commercial office building that is infilling in the vacant, well, it's not a vacant, there are 2 non-conforming residential structures on the property now that will be demolished. It's directly south of the former Moxie and the Como Mango restaurant. And this will be for an existing Madison wealth management company to relocate and build and expand their business. So I think, as you mentioned, the letter from EDC really does nicely summarize the benefits of the development here. It is a commercial use in our downtown village district, really nicely, I think, infills that the streetscape as well. It was done in accordance with all of our design districts for the village district. So I'll leave it at that if you have any specific questions.
okay, well, and I think just to comment, I know that the criteria that's actually listed in the policy is pretty basic. It just says anything that's going to add over $250,000. So one of the conversations I've had with the EDC chair is just to ensure that we have some better guidelines about what type of applications we're receiving. There's a lot of discussion, Jen, you weren't on the board, but I know Bruce, you recall, about what is this program for? What are we trying to use it for? What are we trying to incentivize? So I think they did a great job in laying out like why they approved this, even though there's no criteria requiring that. They were trying to kind of lay out, these are all the things that are benefiting the town by approving this for the deferral program. Because I think my concern still remains, the actual program itself is very limited in terms of criteria. So if you kind of open yourself up to all kinds of applications, right? This is the first one we received in 2 years. So I think part of the discussion with the EDC was going to be, do we want to look at trying to put a little bit more criteria into the policy moving forward?
To open it up.
Yes. Well, to make it more defined about what we're trying to accomplish with the policy. I think that's it. Because right now, I think they did have more criteria before, but it was like job creation criteria. It wasn't really talking about development in general, what people want to see in the community. And I think part of this is also, and when the EDC, we do have the conversation about goals, is we have the strategic plan, right? And we had a lot of conversations about what we want to see for economic development in town. And so trying to line those 2 up and make sure that this policy aligns with that. And so I think that mindset was there when they went through this to make the recommendation. So in general, I think I'm supportive of it because I do feel like it fits with all the things that we're hoping to achieve with this. So I don't know if there are other board members' thoughts.
I mean, at first glance, it looks like it really is a good project for this. I think that the endorsement from the EDC is an important one because they've put it through that filter.
They probably have a little more detailed conversations about it too.
Yeah. On the face of it, it's going to improve the grand list. It's going to bring activity to the downtown area. It's going to bring jobs to the downtown area. It seems like it's a worthy candidate for consideration.
Is the amount of the benefit described in one of these documents?
I think the policy structures it based on the project.
Right, yeah, there's incentive.
So there are
There's a
financial brackets.
Yeah.
Based on the estimated value of the project. So it does put forward that. And And then it would lay out, what the tax benefits, the cost would be to the town. And maybe in our next meeting, we can kind of review that in more detail, spend some time. And then we could also, and it'll be considered an action item at the meeting, but then the EDC, maybe we can make sure that they're here too, to talk a little bit about the objectives and stuff. I think I think it's worthy to continue the conversation and certainly have it at our next meeting, as an action item.
Perfect.
And then we'll go from there, okay? And I know, like I said, I think Andrew is in the UK, so he was stretching it, trying to meeting, I think, but it seemed to work with the schedule, and so with the technology problems tonight, he's, I'm sure for the next agenda. Yeah. Okay?
It's only two.
Good.
Yeah. All right, well, great. We will move on then from that, knowing that will be coming back to us as an action item at our next meeting. Okay, you good, Aaron? Thank you for hanging on.
Thanks.
Okay, be safe. All right, and then moving on to our next agenda item is an update from the Ad hoc Academy Community Center Building Committee, and I apologize that you were further down in the agenda, but knowing that somebody was coming from the UK, I wanted to give them their first crack. So I want to welcome Joe Ballantyne, who's the chair of the Academy Community Center Building Committee. And then I know you have other, if you want to introduce who else is here from your committee, and if there's people online that we should be introducing.
There's I will, if I use the.
Yeah, please do. Yep. And,
I have like 50 minutes for corporations. I'm used to standing up and presenting. Sitting down and presenting is not the way.
Yeah, no, I know. And Jeannie, who can move up as a panelist?
They're not accepted.
Okay, maybe they don't want to be. That's okay.
Just Tom and Mark.
Yeah, Tom and Mark, yes, they should, in case they need to actually say anything and either support or not support, they should be able to do that.
Oh, that
Hi,
is
Tom.
weird with the cameras.
Oh, yeah.
Why is that? I don't know.
You.
There's so many.
You got a lot of you.
Yeah, I would.
You want to take a vote? I'll say something.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's better. Okay. Well, I'm here because we are going to give the committee has been working for about 18 months, about 2 years after the referendum was done in 2022, I guess it was. And we haven't been here in front of the board, and we've been working diligently behind the scenes in public, at the public meetings, but not at this level. And the Tamar Carey, who is out there, is the primary architect for the project, and Mark Skalenka Colliers is the head of the owner's project manager. So we have those two on anybody else on their Jeannie?
Yeah, hands on. Most of the board is here.
We have Joan, whom just about sure everybody knows, and AJ Miller. He's kind of he's newer to the town, but he's on our board, and Sir Bill Stableford, who preceded me on the Academy Advisory Committee. You owe your debt.
This is your show, pal.
Yeah, but you were a good leader. This is an opportune time to give an update, because we're at sort of a juncture of deciding where we have to go with the design of the academy. And I have slides that should be able to go over that. So if you give me the next slide, Jeannie. Okay, good. The referendum was 2 years ago. Our committee was formed in July, so we've been at this about 18 months. We did hire Colliers as the owner project manager and QA&M as the architect. These are the two entities that did most of the work prior to the referendum. They were selected not just because they did the prior work and they did good work, but because they had some of the best ideas and the best talent available to us at a price that we were able to handle. There are 3 levels of estimates that are done before you can before you can go out for bid. The first is a schematic design. That is a fairly simplified method of looking at the total build out, what the cost of the building would be. That was completed in August of 2023. The design development is the second phase. That's a more detailed. Actually, there are 2 different independent estimates that are done. Then they're reconciled. That was just completed in January of 2024. And we received the results of those just about a week or 2 ago. What we hope is that we can get a path that will get us to a general contractor bid by the fall of this year. Construction start near the end of this year, with completion somewhere the end of 2025, and maybe an occupancy shortly thereafter in 2026. This is behind what the schedule was when we started, but it is it reflects our position right now. You can go next slide, Jeannie. Next slide. Yeah. Okay. There are we could give the third one too. There are 3 different scenario options for where we go from here with the design of the building. The first is essentially the build out of the design that was approved in the referendum, and it's constrained by the current budget. We've been working on that design probably up until just a few weeks ago. We thought that we'd be able to stay within the current budget and build a building a center, community center, that more or less agreed with or was reflective of what was presented at the referendum. With the estimates that we got after the DD level, the design documents, we have to actually go one of 2 ways, which is scenario 2 or scenario 3. The first one we actually chose to try to build out was scenario 3, was the full build out of the building. In other words, everything that was in the referendum, at least the vision that was in the referendum, we would build out, and we'd have to determine what that would cost. The second is actually it uses a slightly different methodology, but what we would have to do is look at how much could we build for $15.9 million, which is the overall budget. And we'd start with 0, and you say, what comes first, what comes second, what comes third. When you get to 15.9 million, you have to stop and you say that's all you get for 15.9. We actually have a meeting tomorrow. The building committee meets tomorrow evening, and we're going to take up that very topic from scenario 2. Although I am prepared to talk about scenario 3 today, so you'll be able to see a little bit of what we're doing. Jeannie, thank you. The first thing you get when you look at some of these drawings is this is a big building. You can see you know how tall Academy is. I'm sure you've been by it. If you just see how the length compared to the height, it's a big building. It's about 50,000 square feet. That's a lot of area. The lower one is the front of the building, which faces what we call the front of the building, which faces the post road. If you're standing on the post road, you look in. That's what you see. That has the red doors on it, and that's 1921 was the building, and some of the larger parts, which are to the right, are 1936. So it's not just a large building; it's an older building, and it has its own quirks and it has its own challenges. You go to the next page. One of the things that's hard to see from here, but if you're at Academy, maybe you don't even notice it maybe when you're at Academy. The main floor of the building is not at grade. The main floor of the building is about half a floor up, which also means that the lower level is about half a floor down. Consequently, every entrance to that building, when the kids were there for schools, requires steps one way or the other. So that's a challenge for ADA compliance. It's also a challenge for anybody who is challenged, physically challenged. Now, when you have a bunch of, first, second, and third graders, that's maybe not as much of an issue, but when at a community center, you're gonna get a different audience, and different clientele, and that accessibility does become an issue, and it's an important issue. There are two different designs that I'm going to be talking about to actually try to handle that particular problem and provide us a building that we could be proud of. If you look at this this drawing, what you can see is that there's a glass column in the center, sort of in the center, on the left side, left of center. And in that glass column is an elevator, which is at grade. That allows anyone who's attending to come in and take an elevator to any of the levels. Yep, there it is. Thank you, Bill. And it also, but it also allows, there's stairs. So anybody who is in a hurry, they can always go up the stairs. But it is a very, it's a solution to a problem that is came from the building. The building said, we need to get people in, and in order to do that, for ADA compliance, we're going to need an elevator in addition to the stairs that have been there for a long time.
And this is kind of what was the original design.
This is the original design.
The optimal design.
Right. Correct. You also there in the lower right see the sort of the back of the building that faces the ball fields. Those are the windows that have been broken kind of consistently until that big. I think they have a big backstop now that stops the foul balls. Of course, it doesn't stop anybody from throwing a rock at it when the building's been empty. But that's the building, the end of the building that faces north. I'll take questions anytime if you want, by the way. I'm used to that, but okay, I'll just, the next one, there's an important, let's see, this is the lower level. There's a second quirk to the building, and that is, if you, in the lower right, you'll see two cross-checked areas. Those areas are not developed. As a matter of fact, they're filled with dirt. There was a third area. There's a third area that is the corridor right where the elevator is near the top. That's also filled, and there's a wall there. So the front half, the left half from the way we're looking at it, the left hand of the side of the building was not connected to the right side of the building. So again, a compliance issue, getting people up and down for all the places that they need to go, and for both anybody who's challenged, anybody who's carrying anything heavy, by the way, any of that, and all of that would be is served by the elevator, which you can see it's at the top of this and sort of in the center. By installing the elevator where we are, it actually the excavation actually opens up that corridor, and it's shown open here, not filled. So that actually connects the front half of the left side of the building with the right side in a way that it's then served by the elevator. The left side of on the left of that, there's I believe that's the cafeteria, or was the cafeteria. As a personal note, my kids went to school there. They ate in that cafeteria. I remember meeting them down there in that cafeteria because there were some offices down there where miscreants went.
Not your kids, right?
Not mine. My wife's kids. Those two things have a level of complexity in the building that is solved by the elevator there. But there's a but coming
That's
up,
the
but that'll be
elevator.
a little later.
It's blocked right now, yeah.
Next slide, Jeannie. This is the first floor plan. Again, what you see on the right is the gym. That's a big gym. You see it's a big part of the building. You see, if you can see the crosses with the squares or the rectangles, I guess, painted on it. Those are the pickleball courts, by the way. So we will have additional room for pickleball. which will have to be shared with basketball, which is there. And I'll get back to the stage. I don't know if you've ever, for those of you who've been to Academy, the stage is there. It's a big stage. And we're going to have to talk about that.
This is the stage, right?
Okay. You can see it's a large piece of the building. But you also see, if you look sort of from where we are down from the elevator, there's a big, I don't know, it's a vestibule, called the vestibule, it's called the lounge. It looks, because the building is so big, that looks like, it's not a closet. I believe that's about 15 by 30 or something. It's like, it's between 12 and 1,500 square feet. It's a big piece of property. And that's where communities resides for a community center. It's as you enter the building, it's designed to be a cafe, if we could, a lounge, sofas, food. We're open to different uses for that. But that is a big space that welcomes you when you get in the building. You also look, if you turn towards the gym, it's a short walk a short distance from where the entrance is to the gym. So we've looked at this, we've been looking at this for a long time. And the more we look at it, the design looks better and better. It looks like it accomplishes a lot of the things that you want to see in a community center. The second, probably the largest piece of that building is on the left. And that's the old library. I don't know, we're calling that a meeting hall or that is again, a place for small events, small concerts, maybe larger meetings. And if you look on above and below that, there are two classrooms, so the old classrooms, and they're going to be open to that with sliders and dividers. So that'll be a big space for larger events.
Dressing rooms.
Pardon?
Dressing rooms.
Dressing rooms? No, they look small there. Those classrooms are, I don't know, 20
Like
or
award
30 or something like that.
ceremonies.
Yeah, so you could open up and have additional seating, right, on the sides?
Right.
like
Yes.
that, or- Yeah,
Or
Yeah.
different things on those sides where
right.
the sight line to because the stage is gonna be lowered, so it'll be a low stage. But it'll be small.
The stage is small, but the area is going to, it's a big piece of the building. And again, the building's so large, those little boxes, don't do it justice. By the way, this is a tour of the building that those of us who work on it, we look at these every day. We're familiar with all the parts of it. And again, my kids went to school there. My wife actually taught there for a while. So, we're familiar with all this, but we wanted to give you a feeling for what it was and what it could be. You go to the next. This is the original design entrance. That is, again, as you can see, it's at grade, and I won't belabor that. And if you go to the next, this is where, as I said, we were going to come back to. This is it's a less costly idea. It is a viable idea, but you lose some of what we talked about earlier. It doesn't quite open to the vestibule because the elevator is now inside where the vestibule is. And you are confronted on the only entrance, on the main entrance, you're confronted by stairs, and you can see there's a ramp to the side. So either way, it's you're confronted with a challenge to get up the stairs. The other thing, if you go back a slide, Jeannie, another slide. What I forgot to mention is for those of you who've been inside the building, there's a courtyard. It's open now. I have a picture of it later. Right there. That's going to be filled in. And if we can, we're going to try to get some natural light down there. And it's open to various floors of the building. But that is the large space that I was talking about. That's just not any space. That's where the courtyard is now. Could be it could be open to bring natural light in if we can, and you'll be able to view it from the other floors of the building. We're going to actually look down and see it.
Joe, I think it's worth pointing out, there's already been some value engineering done even on this design over what was originally presented. So the committee has really done its due diligence to try to get even the original design as close to the budget as we could. There are some cool elements that we had to lose, but money, so we.
The original design had glass on both sides, which was just, and also.
And a clear story light.
Yeah, clear story light.
Yes,
Yeah.
so, and those were very, very much nice to have, but they went out very quickly in our process.
Yeah.
Go back to, you can go ahead, a couple more.
One of the things I'd like to know, because
Okay.
I was looking at the building from the John Deacon House over the summer, and on the outside of the gym, there's actually the two theater masks, the comedy and drama masks in brick, carved into the brick. So this was, that part of the building that was the addition, that is the basketball court, was always meant to also have that theater stage in there. That's why that stage is so prominent, is because that was part of the design for the high school at the time, to have a full theater and a gym, so.
And if you look at the backside, if you're ever on the backside of the gym, now, where towards the Madison Youth and Family Services, there's a steel beam sticks out, and there's a hole in the bricks there. That was for lifting heavy items onto the stage. So it was an opening, so you didn't have to take large items from into the through the building to get into the stage. So that's a quirk. I hope we can hold on to that. You want to hold that? Go to where are you? Okay, I believe you're on the upper level. I can't read it from here. I can read it on mine. Second floor plan. Yes, that's. So you actually need to go to that metric to need to hold that. Or is that the top floor? Go to the next.
That's the top floor, that's the top.
That's the top floor,
Yeah.
second floor. The upper floor is going to be the home of Madison Youth and Family Services. If you look on the what is the south side of the building, that is all offices, and then they have more offices on the other side, which are for more, I believe that's for consultations more than general offices. They are also adjacent to larger spaces, should they need the larger spaces. These are all open spaces that would be scheduled and occupied and scheduled by the Beach and Rec. But it's a dramatic upgrade for Madison Youth and Family Services. They have a small building, it's very cramped, not a lot of privacy, and this is an ability to move to an area where they could get again more privacy and more space and help the people who are coming in and out to at least be able to do it with some level of privacy. Again, you'll notice that the elevator comes in and it's adjacent to their offices, and their offices are a short walk around the other way. So anyone who's coming in can come right up the elevator and not go through the lobby.
But there's also art space, the main space for artists has the most light, which is that main building, which, there's a kiln closet, which that will probably be future. But there's still a lot of community space up there as well. There's still like there and above it and all that area is all community space. And it is kind of the prime lighting space. It was thought to be, that's where artists would be painting or creating, things like that. So that's why that space was kind of cornered for that use.
I think we also, we should mention that Park and Rec is going to be in the Beach and Rec, sorry. He'll never-
Amy Poehler's gonna be down there.
Yeah, Amy Poehler. Is going to be in the building, the first floor.
Yes.
As well. So they'll have.
And matter of fact, they're adjacent to the entrance, so they'll be able to monitor people entering the building. There are many other entrances and exits to the building, and that'll be something for Austin to have to deal with and how to handle that.
Good luck.
You can go to the next one, Jimmy. This is this is not as big as I thought it was going to be once it's projected up there. We can have handouts for the board. There's a green line there. If you can see it, there are three columns, and then there's a difference column. The yellow says the variance between the first and third columns. Therein lies why we're at a junction point. The original heavy construction costs were expected to be somewhere around $8.5 million. All the estimates have brought it in about at over $11 million. So there's almost a $3 million. There's a $3 million difference between those two, and there's a reason for that. When the building was first looked at by the architect and by Colliers, they believed that some of the infrastructure in the building could be saved. That not all of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing would be abandoned. That some portion of it could be reused, and that was reflected in the percentage of heavy and light construction. That turned out to be a wrong assumption. The consultant that looked at this, this Kohler, looked at it and said, "This is almost 100-year-old building. You're going to want it to last another 100 years. All the mechanical, electric, and plumbing are going to have to be replaced." That put a significant additional cost to the building. We went through a number of months thinking that we could find things that we might be able to take out, scope that we might be able to take out that would be able to compensate, or at least come close to compensating for that. Unfortunately, what we saw was we actually got more surprises based on some of the assumptions. One of the main ones, as a matter of fact, one that's not quite resolved yet, is the septic system. The assumption was we could use this existing septic system. It had served hundreds of kids every day. It should have held up. It turns out that is not true. The septic system has to be replaced, and that actually creates another problem. Turns out the best place for the leaching fields is right where the playground is. So if we go ahead with the plans as they are now, that will disrupt the playground in some way that is still undetermined. And Austin, I know you're going to have to help with that. The leaching fields are way off to the side, and I didn't bring a map of them, but they essentially go right up the side of the against the church, and that's where the best drainage is. Of course, the good news of that part, not that there's much good news there, but is that the baseball fields are apparently not a good place to put the leaching fields, and that's where they were. So it looks as though the baseball fields will go untouched, and that's for another reason, is that as part of our or part of our effort to make up for that $3 million, we did not include the geothermal as part of the design that we're currently that we're looking at. We felt that that wasn't as visible, although it was it was proposed. It was actually put in the budget specifically, but first of all, the cost escalated significantly from what it was, and there have been advances in the air to air heat pumps that allow them to be able to heat or to heat at levels down to like -10 or -15 degrees Fahrenheit. So the benefits of the geothermal were reduced, and it was the costs went up specifically for the well drilling. So we said that was not something that we were going to be able to hold on to. The payback period turned out to be somewhere around, I've been trying to look this up, it was either like 20 or 40 years. It was an incredibly long payback period for installing the geothermal. Primarily, well, two reasons. One, the cost of digging the wells has increased, and the efficiency of the air heat pumps has been improved.
And the demand for all parts have increased because so many people are going for it now. Incentives.
I believe the town representatives at the meeting who were saying the maintenance costs are more complex for the geothermal systems. So there might be some ongoing
And it's
cost
if
implications.
this were a new building, it might be still viable, but we're talking about putting it into a 100-year-old building and in a confined space with town properties all around it. It just did not have the payback that we would have liked.
And there's $1 million differential.
Right. So we saved $1 million there, but the septic system turns out, matter of fact, the septic system is still under review because it may not be just Academy, the whole system, the system of buildings around in that area may need work, but that's something that's out of our hands at the moment, directly out of the hands, and it's being designed. So we're looking at designs in cooperation with the town.
Because it doesn't really make sense to just tackle one building when there's literally 3 or 4 there that could be utilized as a group. So.
The fire codes are going to require a sprinkler system, which was not something that was in the original design. That was another $300,000 difference. The site improvements, which we thought would be in the in about $150,000 range, turned out to be $370,000, and that's for very minimal site improvements, just pavers and some shrubbery and refurbishing some of the parking lot, not installing a new parking lot. Bottom line, if you go down to the bottom, is that the anticipated building costs are going to be $14 million in this last estimate, compared to about $12 million that was originally budgeted. The total cost of the building, and that would be right now, if we chose this option, would be about 17.8 compared to 15.9. It's about a $2 million difference.
So
there are still more issues to be resolved.
So I'm having trouble sorting the numbers out.
Yeah.
The dark blue column was the original projection of 15.9.
Yes, 15.9.
Right.
If you could see down to the blue line on the bottom,
Right.
it says 15.9.
If you built that building, if you moved forward with that building, what would the differential be?
If we were held to the 15.9?
No. If you were held to the design requirements.
17, they wanted the.
17.
No, because that drops a lot of stuff out.
18.
Yeah, it primarily drops the geothermal.
Geothermal.
That's the main.
The other pieces that seem itemized have been kind of lumped together in the next 2 columns. So it's not that we're missing those items, they're incorporated in a larger number in the other columns.
Except the ones that are missing. Some of them that show negative are real subtractions from the project.
No, like the missing ones, so for instance, I just want, because I can't see very well. So site work is now this dollar versus these individual items. Do you know what I'm saying? So this site work doesn't necessarily, there's some site improvement and things like that, but all of the site work that is here is this one number. So the 7550, they're just kind of, that's 370,000.
But 75, 50, 45, and 25 doesn't equal 370.
Correct.
That's the
There's,
point.
that's the point. There's more,
there's more needed here, and there's a differential between the 10 million and the 14 million.
The site work, for example, is because of the septic, right?
Right.
You're now having to redesign, have leaching fields elsewhere.
No, sanitary and sewer was
Oh.
originally 65,000 for just kind of tweaks. Now it's 253,000. It's a quarter of a million.
So is the
a lot of the
15.9, is the project that we were looking at in the original referendum at 15.9, is that same project today 18.2?
Yes.
That's
It's
the same
close.
project.
There's potential adds on to that because we haven't even looked at the stage or theater, the larger theater. And we're just gonna do that as an add-on so that we can raise funds for it privately.
Okay, because so what I'm trying to do is say, the 15.9 back then is really what? Today?
It's not even 18.2. Remember I told you there was a separate entrance design? That entrance design would have a $550,000 savings. And so
That's in
that
there.
is,
So it's
it would be-
18.7,
Yeah, it would be like
18.8. About close to 18.8.
That, again, that's the current estimate. That's not, we don't have a GC yet.
Sure, I get that. I get that we're working with, numbers with lots of zeros on them, we're not counting out to the pennies, right?
Right.
We've got 0.0 or 0.6, but
So if you took this number and added in the geothermal, which is almost 1 million,
yeah.
that would align to about that 18.8, which we were talking about. So we are deducting $500,000 as an alternate design. So that would be a cost savings if we brought the elevator in and did the ramp and the stairs in the front. We took that out in this, but then we also took out the geothermal. So if you keep the original design, add back in the geothermal, you'll get to that 18.8 approximately. And you're talking, that's construction dollars. And there is there's maybe a million that were unanticipated, but you're looking at $2.5 million just on the build outs.
So in very
construction.
round numbers, a 16 million project back then is really closer to 20 today.
19 to 20.
Probably 18.
I'm baking in some extra slop, because it's, by these numbers, it's really
Round
19.
numbers, 3.
It's really 19
But
million.
why,
It goes from
but why,
It's
but why is
basically
it,
going
why would we even
15.9.
go there? What's the point of doing that? The point is things change, like the designs change. They're saying now the design that they're recommending, my understanding of what you're saying is $2 million over, not 4.
Well,
Because they had to value engineer and change some things, and I'm assuming there
there's still
was
some more to
cost
come though.
increases.
But
We still
so I
haven't-
hear
I
Joan
understand.
saying there's
I
still some
understand.
unknowns
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that could add.
I just don't think we can
That-
compare
that
apples
could
to
add.
apples, I guess is the point.
But it gives us, they're benchmarks for us to talk about what the 2 is.
Right.
That's the utility of it is if we were to say we are the original thing, that's the constraint. The dollars aren't the constraint. The budget moves closer to 20 million.
Yeah.
Right.
And then we talk about some of the value engineering that pulls it back down.
Right. So the thing I like about this piece up here is very succinct. Heavy renovation, light renovation, core and things like that. If you look at the end, the differential from the referendum to what is here is 3.4 million.
Right, okay, so that's the number.
And then
that
we
roughly-
tried to, we're trying to engineer that down as much as possible so that we know, that we're under a tight budget and we
But
want to try to.
not compromising the spirit of what we want to deliver to the town.
Right.
And one of the things I asked both Tom and Mark, the Colliers and QA&M, was how confident are you of this number that we gave? We picked and chose from various pieces and we added them together. Does that give us a whole building? And both of them said yes. That the number that you see at the 17.8 Or if you wanted to build the whole thing out at 18.7 or 18.8, we would be able to build that. And I did look back against all of our past, we've had like 4 or 5 different estimators work on this. And I looked back on what they did, and the number of the total construction escalated, that's what the estimators get. That's what an outside estimators get. Each of them was all of them were between about $14 and $15 million. And we're assuming 14 million of construction costs. And that's been consistent from like the very first estimate we had. Yes, the estimate was.
So I have a really silly question.
Oh, great. I'll give you a silly answer, but
No,
I'll give you a serious answer.
I remember a big effort to save a building on Wall Street in a renovation. And ultimately, the decision was, it is better for the project to tear it down and recreate the frontage. You know what I'm talking about.
That would be the Scranton Library. Or you mean the historic building?
No, the whole building.
Yeah, the whole building.
The whole building, the original plans were to incorporate that into the expansion, and then reality set in, and it wasn't gonna work.
Couldn't possibly have
And
worked,
the best way forward was tear it down and then
I remember that.
to do a really good job of recreating the frontage on it. Would that ever make sense here? Would we ever be better off just tearing it down, avoiding all of the renovation, and starting from the ground up, recreating the facade?
I can opine on that.
Yeah,
I would just say that what we're seeing market trend wise, and Mark can confirm this, is for public buildings, we're seeing just for the building portion, bids coming in, new construction, somewhere between $500 and $550 a square foot, which would put a similar building at 25 million. You'd also have to have costs for demo and abatement of the building, plus the site work. So at the end of the day, I think magnitude of cost for a new building is 28, 29 million versus 18, 19 million. So I think there's about a $10 million swing for the same size building and the same size amenities.
I can also, I'm sorry, I can just add to that. The savings would be in the square footage. If you didn't need a building that was 55,000 square feet to deliver what the town of Madison would be looking for from a community center, maybe you would have a conversation about savings. But if we were going to keep the same square footage, Tom's 100% right that it would be significantly more expensive. And Bill Stableford, if you're in the room, you were on the original, well, you've been involved with this since day one. We looked at a new building option, and I'm trying to find the actual budget that we had delivered for that back in the day, but it was significantly more expensive for a new building than a renovation. If I find it during this portion of the presentation, I'll share it with you.
You didn't say it was a smart question.
You did caught me on it. You caught me on it.
I think Mark brings up a point. That's you'd have to program a smaller building.
Right.
And also would have to say, we could do in X percentage square feet what the town needs.
Cut it by a third.
But I think it's also the spirit of this was also preservation, right? And the beauty of the building itself lends itself to a lot of the activities that are going to be in the building. So this was also saving something that had a historic, nature, and that a lot of the passion was around the history of the building, in addition to what people wanted, right, from the community center. So it's a fair question, because you have to go through that make versus buy analysis all the time to figure out what makes sense.
There's another value here that doesn't show up on this page, and that's the Madison Youth and Family Services are going to have. They're going to leave the building they're in, and they're going to come to this building. So there's a significant movement of town offices that get bigger offices, better offices. That has value. But then, of course, the building there is left on the other side. What are you gonna do with that? Does that have value? And all those would contribute to say, make this do this building, move Madison Youth and Family Services, get the historic preservation, and to get the and get the space you need for not just the community center, but the Madison Youth and Family Services.
Well, and then I would also highlight, I don't know if we would still, grants, the grant that we got, the $4 million grant, and the hopefulness we have for the federal grant, which, you know, we're still hearing has a real chance of getting passed in March.
So-
So that'd be $8 million we'd be risking.
So that's a great segue into the real conversation,
Yeah.
which is, at the end of the day, we have a ceiling in our budget. But can we create a pathway that doesn't ask for the taxpayers to fund out of their dollars, additional dollars, but increase the overall budget? I mean, I think this where we're headed to is, this was a great plan until we got punched in the face, right? What do they say? The plan is great.
Let's say it was,
until-
we learn more. We had a reality check, and we knew about it. We thought we could overcome it with other things farther outside of that, but we got punched in the face again and again and again by the sewer system, and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to swing it in a different
I don't think
perspective,
so.
I watched their last 2-hour and 19-minute meeting in preparation. And I remember Tom saying if we were to move forward with this project with the current budget of 15.9, and if we did all of our mechanicals, our structurals, everything else, we would be left with $2 million to renovate a portion of the building for offices and
That's
that
what
sort
we're
of
gonna
thing.
do tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're gonna say, okay, from 15
That's
point
option B,
down,
right?
this is
Yeah.
what we're gonna be able to deliver.
Right.
And we're gonna start with, you know, we've gotta do the mechanicals
Yeah.
and tighten the thing and do, you know, the roof and things like that, and make sure that the building is safe.
Yeah, and then in relation to the grants that we're receiving, then if we wanted to keep those grants, youth and family would really have to be
Right.
the portion that was renovated.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then what do we have left?
Yeah,
Exactly.
So that's one
So
of the
we'll do
things we're
that
gonna be
exercise.
sharpening our pencils with tomorrow, which should be a lot of fun. Hopefully these guys will get.
And,
But,
and Bruce,
I'm gonna tune in for that one.
you're getting to a win, you're getting to a win-win situation. If there's that pathway, then the town can budget or can bond less than 15.9 million. And the building could be built to the original vision with the balance of the 2 million.
The challenge is we don't know, right? It's March. right?
Yeah.
But
So Joe, the irony here, is since referendum, we've learned two things. The price of the building has gone up,
Mhm.
but the cost to the taxpayers has potentially gone down.
Right.
With these
I
grants.
call that a win-win.
Yeah.
And can I ask just one question? One thing I know we haven't covered is like the soil and groundwater. Is that incorporated into these prices, or is that one of the unknowns? Because I know there were some results of testing.
Well, Erin was, I don't know if she's gonna be able to, but she's on next.
Okay,
And that is that's
Forgot,
the-
poor Aaron's back
there's
again.
monitoring wells that she's going to be talking about.
okay,
Yeah.
but are those numbers of any potential remediations included in what we're seeing here, or that's part of the unknown?
I think we have some remediation plan for this, for for some of the areas. Erin will be able to talk better to that,
Okay.
because there's some underground tanks
Yep,
that have to be, they talked about monitored and maybe crushed in place.
yeah,
But again,
okay.
that'll. So,
But the numbers, I think, comparative to what we're talking about are fairly small.
Okay,
If I
okay.
remember correctly.
These are energy tanks or sewage tanks?
they were.
These are
Fuel.
There were
fuel.
fuel and septic too. They're both.
That were not
Like encapsulated.
encapsulated correctly and then started, so then you just have to keep, you have to test out and see how deep in.
I mean, it seems like we're at, as you said, an inflection point, right? We have to pick a path. And one path is gonna require us to go out and get permission from the public to allow us to spend more on the project, but not necessarily bonding more. We might actually be bonding less because of the grants, right? So the money that we paid for by the grants. Because right now, just to remind everybody, the way the bonding resolution read is every grant we get deducts away from the amount of bonding. So it's a net against the bonding rather than going towards more spending, right? So that's what had been approved. We would need to go out back to the public and say, can we
Bond for
spend
less.
more and bond for less, basically? Or, yeah, well, bond up to 15.9 million, but we would need.
And then the grants would be
Right.
on top.
The grants
if
would be
needed.
covering the supplemental costs rather than going against the bonding, I
Right.
guess, right?
Right.
So we would have to ask the public permission to do that. We would go through a referendum process to do that. There's no way to, the budget, I think, disparities are too big for any way to supplement. Unlike the school project, we could shift through projects, shift around, but this was a separate vote. And we can't shift things. We were allowed to do that with the school project. We can't do it here. So there's that path, or it's, you got your budget, do what you can, and then whatever you can't do will probably end up in CIP, right? And that sounds like the analysis of what you're doing now, a little bit to understand what can we get for 15.9 million, what's left out of that, and how that would be funded over a period of time through donations, through CIP and things like that. So those are kind of the two,
So I think for us to really have good conversations about it, we've got the expense side of it. Now we need to have the funding side of it conversation as well, and I'm sure you guys don't have.
Not quite the expense. You've got to verify, because if you're gonna look at the number, let's look at the
well,
number.
we would need
And we could
another
always
version
come
of this
back.
that would, I think we
Right.
would need a really targeted, before we would even go to referendum, obviously, it would have to be. a
These are the
much
things.
more
Oh, yeah, I'm saying that,
Yeah.
we need to talk about all of these different funding mechanisms. There's the bonding portion, there's the grant portion.
And the grants would be noted at that point.
There may be
too.
rebate portions, that, like we did with the town, system. So we need both sides of those conversations before we can start even imagining a path forward that we could take to the public. And so what I would like, my big ask is that there is the original referendum number with the assumptions, and then right next to it, those same assumptions with today's costs. That 18, 19 million, whatever that number is. And then all the value in engineering can happen in the columns, after it, but it gives the benchmark. This is, if we gave you what you asked for back then, this is what it would cost today. Here are our suggestions for opportunities to save some money.
I think that's important for the public to see all of those phases of discussion.
Bruce, you're right on with the finances. My question is, to what degree, if at all, is the undesignated fund balance available for projects like this?
Referendum.
But aren't those already dollars that the taxpayers have paid?
But they need to approve their spending.
So that kind of spending would have to go to referendum.
It's actually, it's because of the way the resolution was done, which is typical for all of them. When it's voted on, this project is now got a scope that was approved by the public, and the funding source is the bonding less grants.
Right.
So you have to look for things outside of the scope, and there are a few things, I would say, you could argue, the septic, for example, was not contemplated in the original referendum, and we had this conversation when we talked about the, addition of classrooms, right, done after the referendum had happened. But that's only part of the gap. There's so many, the rest of the stuff, the construction estimates are just things, those aren't new. Everybody knew you had to do new electrical or whatever, there's, so I think it would be very difficult. You could maybe knock off one or two things that were really truly out of the blue after the referendum passed to try to fund out of that. But I don't think you're going to close that gap.
No. So it would be included as a funding mechanism in a referendum question. We're going to do the 15.9 in bonding. We're going to do X in undesignated fund balance. We're going to do Y in grants and other things.
The portion from the undesignated fund balance, you can convey to the public that those are dollars that are already spent by the taxpayers and are available.
Yeah.
And that's a wise use of
So-
I guess
so-
I see the way I look at this, so we don't even need to go there,
Oh, right.
because the reality is we authorize, the town was comfortable authorizing up to $15.9 million in bonding. If we get two $4 million grants, right?
Right.
Right now, we're having to net them off the 14.9 million. If we could just apply the grant money to cover the budget deficit,
Even one of the grants.
you know, we still will be bonding less than 15.9 million. So I don't even think we need to talk about other funding. I think it's more, let us apply the grant money on top of the 15.9 million
Yeah.
versus having to net it off, right? And not all of it, even, right? We're talking 3 million and we have 8 million in grants.
And it's a win-win.
So,
Public wins.
We hope.
you know,
But again,
I know, but
we
that
need
is a
those,
big
we need
part of the
those numbers
decision
before we
making.
can have a really
Yeah,
good
exactly.
conversation.
And know where we stand on the grant, because that does change, I think, the conversation quite a bit, having an additional 4 million.
Now, Bruce, maybe you, the board can give us a little guidance. There are some of these value engineering things that I think our committee were really painful for us to put in, right? And they were things that, yes, drop the cost, but sacrifice some of the spirit and maybe some of the long-term thinking as well, right? Should we replace the entire parking lot instead of just refinishing the one we have? Well, maybe the town then has to replace it in a few years because it broke apart, right? Like, was that a good use of those funds? So is there some guidance that the board can give us when we're trying to provide which value engineering things we would recommend? Should we be thinking about everything? How do we describe that to you? Here are the ones that we think are no-brainers, easy things. And here are the ones that are, well, we could, but.
Well, I think that
We'd hate
is
to.
it. I think it's prioritizing. I think one of the big question marks is the entrance. That is a game changer for that building, in my view. So yes, you can value engineer it down and save $500,000, but what are you losing too much of the accessibility as well as the beauty of the design?
Architectural elegance.
And so, yeah,
Let's not do
so,
another Daniel Hand.
you know, but that's a conversation I think the
There
board
it
has.
is.
I also know
You hit the
there are
nail
other
on the
things
head.
like
So my response
That's the
is,
cafeteria. That's the cafeteria.
if we have potential grant funding that is well in excess of the deficit, I want the building we voted on a couple of years ago, period, with no compromises.
If we're gonna go out.
That's the
I agree
answer.
with you. Yeah.
You know, and until we know that we don't have that money, I don't want to consider anything else.
Yeah, I think that's fair, the point about not wanting another Daniel Hand, because, you know, again, I watched the meeting and I know one of the areas that they were. It was
Cafeteria.
bleachers, it was bleachers versus chairs, it was electronic scoreboards, it was room dividers, you know, all those things that make the functionality of programming.
And we haven't even addressed the stage, the main stage, I'm calling it, the larger stage for actual productions and different events that could be held there. So that's, we hope to tackle that in rough estimate, get it timed down.
If you want to, are there any more questions on this? Because we, you know, we're getting to the end. If you want-
There's more.
Oh.
And
So I was like, that was enough.
I'll have to tell you, see that line down the center? I worked like an hour and a half trying to get rid of that. And it just wouldn't go. I didn't think it was there in the finished slide, but there it is.
Yeah.
Our committee's meeting tomorrow, as I mentioned earlier, we're gonna go through a process of additive process instead of subtractive. Joan described it very well. We're gonna come to 59 and we're gonna close the meeting, I guess.
But also talk about the next one.
Yes. The build out of the gym stage, I'm not sure how we missed that there was, I assumed that there would be light renovations or some renovations to the stage. But there's no compliance, there's no ADA compliance. We need to, as an ad, get a cost for the stage in maybe even a first cost and then a finished cost. But that's something we need to do. Bill Stableford, my good friend, when he, as the advisory committee, if you look to his, to the survey they did, the performance and the theatrical stage was first or second maybe second on the list.
The original assumption, Joe, was that most of that would take place in the auditorium, what's currently the library. was the library. And that would be a fully outfitted stage with side areas for props and changing rooms and permanent seating of up to 250.
Right, and that cost was gonna be much greater
That was the original.
than what could potentially be done. It was 125 seat originally in the referendum. And to the height of the ceilings, the height of the stage, just to have it be a theater, let's say, even similar to the cafetorium, okay? That is at the high school, you know, all stages are raised and they're raised for a reason. And the one in this design is actually gonna be lowered for ADA compliance and to be able to have a small, you know, where you could get up on the stage and you could do a presentation of the budget, say, or, you know, and you could house 125, 130 people and not necessarily take over Polson Auditorium to do it, or have a town meeting and you have a small stage and have a microphone up there. The design currently does not have any true theater lighting directed in it. It's just basic auditorium lighting at this point in time. So we do have a gem of a stage. I've been doing theater for over 40 years and there's really the depth and breadth. There's a drop floor in the main stage in the gym. There's really wonderful design. You know, when Joe and I were walking through, we first looked at the recital and we go, okay, we could figure out, we could stretch it, you know, we started looking, and then I walked into the gym and I went, oh my gosh, this is the stage type of thing. So if we really do want to try to do this and say, this is a true community center, you know, I'd rather even have that be a phase 2 if we have to, and really, if voters say, no, we need to keep this at a certain level, and privately raise funds to try to make that happen. Because I just really believe that it's just an amazing space, and its depth and its breadth and the capability and the height, and like you said, things were flown. I mean, it was designed originally, and you can tell by the exterior, it was designed as a theater. And that's why the funny thing is, you were talking about the fold-out seats, Jen. Well, if we don't have the theater in that space, we don't need that, because you're not gonna have a fold-out seats for people playing basketball in the middle of it or anything else.
Well, so that just got me thinking now, if the stage that's in what was the library is really not gonna be super functional for any kind of large scale productions, is it really necessary? Because I did hear also that the cost was increased because of having to lower the stage to add in the accessible ramps and whatnot. Could we just cut that stage out and focus those funds on the stage in the other area? I mean, do you want a stage to give your budget presentation?
So I would just say that we're probably getting a little too deep in the
Right,
weeds
yeah.
for this
Well,
discussion.
it's all idea, that's what you guys are struggling
Given
with.
that's
I think.
9:15.
I know. And it's a lot of those trade-offs, right, that we're constantly having to do.
And that's what we're gonna be doing.
Right.
We do have to resolve the scope of this septic system, and that's not us alone. That's gonna be a townwide decision, or to determine which, if any, of the buildings have a long-term future, or they're gonna have be part of a larger septic system for the whole area, or individual septic systems. That's something that has to be resolved. We also need to proceed with necessary permits, and until we resolve some of the septic issues, we're not gonna get that as part of that permitting process.
So the question I have is, if the board decided to go and get approval from the voters through a referendum, how far are you away from like nailing down what that number is? Because ideally, if we were to do that, you don't want to then spend another 6 months after the you want to go out to bid. Like, okay, you got the approval from the voters to get them to spend the money, and you know, what is the timeline for that? Because we've lost a lot of time already, you know, for various reasons. And the building's deteriorating, and I think people really want to see action soon. So do you have a sense of how far you would?
Well, what's the starting line? Is it when we have our meeting tomorrow and we give you all the information you need? Or is it when the referendum is, whenever that's going to be?
Well, then, my point more is to go to referendum, we need in my view, we need a hard number.
Right.
That basically, this is it. You go out, the day after you get approval, you go to bid, right? If you.
Okay, so that means we have to start the design
Yeah.
document, the construction documents before we have that. There's a
And
risk in that.
How long does that take?
Tom, construction documents from day one to finish.
I think we have about 3 months scheduled, but I would interject and say the estimates that we have completed to date are pretty darn good. We went through an exhaustive process. We've had 2 separate estimators look at a fairly detailed scope of the project. So of the scope that we have dollars or numbers for, I feel fairly confident that those numbers are pretty darn good. It's the scope that we just don't know yet. The septic system, are we going to do something extra with the stage? The pieces, pulling all the pieces together. But I would like to think that, within 4 weeks time, barring going through the entire CD process and then getting estimates reconciled again, I would say you could have a pretty good number in about 4 weeks.
That's helpful to know.
But you still have to do the construction drawings before you go out to bid. Would that be correct?
Of course, we would have to do that, and then there'll be another cost reconciliation process, just like we did at the DD phase. There may be some VE work at that point as well, but the scope is really getting fine tuned, and the numbers are getting better and better as we get there. So,
I think maybe the harder thing is the grant side. I think they're closer to having firm numbers than we are to having firm grant numbers.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah. No, there's a lot of unknowns. We're in a lot of unknowns. So I'm trying to get an idea that,
Budget referendum's probably
What's the date
not
of the-
gonna work.
What's the date of the budget referendum?
yeah,
Well, in theory, we can hold. Right?
yeah, we can have a little
Just amount
referendum.
of getting
Makes
people
sense.
out.
Yeah. Get people
Yeah,
out.
but then
And
there's
we
a
don't
time
want to
going
do it
backwards.
premature. We don't want to rush the referendum and then
Not have the numbers.
we want to have it be
Right.
ready. And if we go that path, and so I think it's important to see, but if people aren't going to vote for the building that we all wanted, and they don't support it, then Plan B is sticking to the $15.9 million. It's not that the project's not going to happen. It's just a much smaller project, basic renovations, and then try to put the other stuff into CIP.
Yeah, the last bullet there is that's our immediate goal. We want to be able to get to the point where we can begin the creation of the construction documents. That starts the cascading process of getting the big building built. From drawings to contracting to construction to opening it.
So that's the problem. We need that. We can't go to construction document until we have a design that we're
Right.
satisfied with.
Hey, you need the budget. You need to know what the budget is.
Yes, and we need to know what the budget and the design are. They go hand in hand.
Right.
Well, but I think that the messaging you're hearing from the board, though, is there's support to go out to get additional approval from the voters for the design that everybody wanted, right?
Yep.
We just don't, generally, that's what we've talked about tonight, right? And so that's where I think that, at least so you know that you can focus on that and refine that. But then we're also gonna have to have the alternative, because if it doesn't pass, we need to have a plan B, right?
And then
So-
just to be clear for the listeners, when we say go out for additional approvals, we don't mean to bond more than the 15.9 that they originally approved. It just means to not cut the grants out of that
And
15.9.
maybe less scope.
Right.
That's what it means.
But I mean, again, in the really simple math that we've done, the grant numbers are more than enough
Mhm.
to cover the excess. And so the scope doesn't necessarily have to suffer. And to Peggy's point, we might be able to say, we want you to vote again for a bigger budget, but we want to reduce the amount of bonding we're asking
That's
for.
fair. Yeah.
Right, so,
That's the message.
so, but.
I heard spend more, bond for less, t-shirt.
Yeah.
And I'd like to buy a vowel, Al.
All right, well, I
All
know
right,
this is,
so
we're getting
given
late,
that
yes,
it's
yes.
unfortunately not
Jeez.
If you,
All right.
if you flip to the next,
Yeah.
I had a slide for questions, so I guess I didn't need this slide.
Okay, so if we just take a
We
quick look,
drafted you.
I want to show you, that's the stage, the middle, that's the stage.
That's the stage in the
Right.
small,
In the small.
It's
and,
small.
and the gym stage is the one above.
Right.
And the kitchen, I thought the kitchen was an
Just a
interesting one too, that's the kitchen in the center there. And if you go in, and just in case this wasn't enough, if you wanted more questions, you can hit the next slide.
I will say that I think it might be worth the board doing another tour of the building. Because
Sure.
I did it 4 years ago, you probably never toured it.
No, I didn't. Bill took me and
Oh,
Al
okay.
took me.
But it just
Yeah.
might be help with all this to really do another tour, you know, in the next couple of weeks to refresh and understand what we're talking about now.
Very
And now we have actually plans to understand better, because when I toured it, it was all just kind of, you know, well, we may do this here, or this would be a, you know, this would be a much more detailed discussion. So,
So to the next slide. That's the courtyard area, the way it looks now. That'll be filled in and it's open to the sky right now. There's a way we can get that open to the natural light. That's a win-win. And to the right is the play yard, the playground, that will have, the current septic system design, that will have to be modified in some way.
relocated, basically, right?
Okay, next slide, I did want to take this the opportunity to thank the members of the committee. We've been doing a year and a half of hard work. We're probably gonna have another year or so left, and Kelly, Rich.
I was waiting to see what number he said.
Yeah. John Lamoran, AJ's here, Joe Paradiso, he travels a lot. Dave Spurley's been a great vice chair, Joan, as always. And don't want to forget Elaine Davis, who was for the first year or so was with us. So I listed her as emeritus, and of course Bill. I mean, we're walking up the mountain that you showed us. So
Well, thank you, Joe.
thank you.
All right, well, thank you. We appreciate it. I know this has been a tough one. I think it's been a tough one in town since 2004 when the building was closed. So you're the 15th Academy Committee, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll get there. So thank you for all your hard work. And we'll be hearing from you again.
Yes,
Thank you.
very soon.
everybody, all the
Definitely meet
work that the
tomorrow.
committee has done. So with that, then I guess, hang on for a second. Item number 11. I'm just wondering, is this something we have to talk about tonight, the site assessment? I don't know if Erin's still on. Can we, she's still here. We can spend a second on it, I guess. Erin, I know you've probably been waiting patiently.
Probably at this point.
Erin.
Hi.
I know.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, so, this is, obviously, we're getting late here, but, as you, or some of it too, but, can you explain this environmental site assessment and recommendations? And I think we have, Russell, are they on?
That was my question for Jeannie. She had
Somebody from
organize this to be on the agenda this evening.
Okay, you're sounding a little distorted, but it looks like we do have somebody from.
I mean, I can be fairly brief. I don't know how much you're looking for an update.
So.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can. You were cutting out, and it looks like.
Hello?
Somebody here from Jeannie, who's in New York.
This is Melissa Norick from Fussin O'Neill, if you can hear me.
Okay, great. So it would be great if you could just give us a quick overview of the groundwater evaluation.
Okay. So we conducted a phase 2 environmental site assessment, which consisted of going and installing some soil borings to test some areas of concern that had a potential for release. If you looked through the report, there were 2 main areas. One talked about some superficial soils in front of the building to be managed during redevelopment. And the other, that is the primary focus of the proposal, was a historical heating oil tank that was removed. There was some heating oil that had been released and excavated out the impacted soils. During our investigation, we put a soil boring there, and there was evidence of residual impacts still in place. We collected a groundwater grab sample out of the soil boring, which came back with concentrations of petroleum constituents above groundwater protection criteria. So the groundwater protection criteria is meant to protect areas of high quality groundwater that may be used for drinking supply. And that raised concerns with the potential for a significant environmental health condition. As you're aware, this area is supplied or has public water available. But our proposal is to confirm that all of the houses in the surrounding area are indeed connected to public water, and that we would go back and confirm this detection just to have a better understanding, which would involve installing a permanent groundwater monitoring well as opposed to the initial sample that was taken out of an open borehole.
And so I guess then you're looking for the town then for us to recommend to do the confirmation process. Is that the next step?
Yes, pretty much. Can you hear me now, Peggy?
Yes, I can. Yep.
Is that better?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. And I've been working, a lot of this assessment or all of this assessment so far is funded through a DECD grant, brownfield assessment grant, in which we are able to amend our budget to include this additional scope of assessment. And I've had a meeting with DECD to do that, and followed up actually with Kathleen Payne at FUS, who's the project manager, in an email today. I guess one of the questions we had, Melissa, is that can you tell us how long you would need to monitor the groundwater for?
So that would be dependent on the initial results and if there are private supply wells within a 500-foot radius. So if we go out there and do this initial event and the concentrations are below criteria, then that would be it. It'd just be something to keep an eye on during the redevelopment project. If there is a detection above criteria with the permanent ground monitoring well, and there are wells in the area, there would be ongoing monitoring until the condition was below criteria, which would also include sampling any private wells in the area on a most likely a quarterly basis.
Okay, so this next phase is roughly about a 1 to 2 month window of testing to give us a more definitive path, I guess, of how, if we need to continue monitoring for the longer term.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. So I guess to the board, the course of action, I guess, that I was advised through DECD would be that I provide this information to DECD, the additional scope of services. They'll amend the budget, and once we get the okay from them that they're going to fund this remaining, I think it's roughly $21,000. We're well under budget for our award. We have a $200,000 assessment award, and we've only used roughly $20,000 now. So I don't foresee any problems with this. I would just say that once we
confirm with DECD that they'll fund it, that we'd be able to move forward as quickly as possible with this next phase.
Do it.
Yep.
Sounds
Great.
good. Cool.
Okay.
I think you have our support to move forward.
Agreed.
Okay, great. Thank you, Erin. Sorry for the late night.
Thank you, Melissa, for joining us.
Okay, all right, so that's the last academy agenda. You don't have, I know. Unfortunately, we were not as kind to the Madison Little League, because we have you, Lois, so only, I didn't realize there were gonna be representatives here, so. Item number 12 is discuss and take action to accept a donation from Madison Little League in the amount of $36,314 for the Nelson Field Lighting Project pending Board of Finance approval.
So moved.
Okay.
With gratitude.
Austin, if you want to introduce and,
Please, yeah,
and
so-
talk about the donation we're very excited about. And I'm sorry you got caught up in this meeting, but
I came down here to sit in this chair, and so.
So joined by Chris Boynton from Madison Little League. Their donation will contribute to this project of lighting the 2 Nelson ball fields at Surf Club. A very generous donation on behalf of Madison Little League families, both present and future. So we're excited and thankful for their support in moving this project along. And just thanks to the whole Madison Little League board and families in town for getting on board with this project and helping us.
Terrific.
Been a
Yeah.
long time coming.
Yeah, no, we're excited, and I know you guys spent a lot of time last year going through the CIP process to get approval for the project, and then we partnered up with Little League on this using ARPA funds, so we're grateful to see the project move forward. So thank you for the donation.
Yeah, thank you guys for all the assistance in making this happen, and Austin has been a great project manager for us, so we appreciate the town's resources and being able to get this to the finish line.
Yeah, this will be an exciting one. So I guess with that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, well, thank you for the donation. And then item number 13 is discuss and take action to award a contract for the Nelson Field Lighting Project to Musco Sports Lighting in the amount of $236,114, funded through ARPA and existing beach and rec budget, and to authorize the first selectman to sign all contracts and documents associated with this award.
So moved.
Second. Okay, and this is basically the project cost now. Most of it is ARPA. There was a little bit of money that Austin could,
Yeah, so-
was able to apply to some of the, will you explain?
Yeah, thanks. So the project, funded through ARPA and the donations through Madison
Yeah.
Little League. So this 236,000 is the lights from Musco, the conduit, which my department will do on our own, and the engineering costs associated with the entire project. The remaining project budget, which is the electrical work, those bids are due back the 12th. So once we know that money, what that dollar amount is, Little League will be doing this again to fund that portion of the project as well.
What's the timeline, Austin?
We hope to have the lights on, shortly after opening day. So
Terrific.
So that's, they could do it pretty
Mid-April,
quickly. That is
April-ish.
good. Yeah. Okay.
Exciting.
Awesome.
Been a long time coming on this one.
Yeah.
Boy.
All right, well, with that then, I guess all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, great. We look forward to seeing the project, and thank you for hanging on for
Thank you.
Good job.
the rest of
Good job,
the
Austin.
meeting.
Say thank you to Little League for us, will you?
Absolutely.
Item number 14 is discuss feedback from the public information session on the Gargle Point Improvement Project. We had a public information session. We had a number of people show up and give some important, I think, thoughts. I think one of the things that was mentioned and we've asked them to look into is adding that additional staircase back for the boat beach.
Yes.
And that was something where this is the right time to do it. That had been washed away, I think, a few years ago. So that was good. We got some additional feedback. And I think we'll try to get questions answered from one of the residents today about, I had written down these, but I think a lot of the stuff that he was talking about was discussed in terms of the sight
Yeah, the
lines.
line of sight, the railings was specifically discussed that we didn't need.
We're not doing those yet.
we didn't need them.
We
So
did ask.
there was,
We did
there
ask, yeah.
there was a reason. They had a very specific answer to that.
And I remember I asked, not at the public information session, but at one prior about the temperature
Concrete
of the
treatment.
concrete. And they said there was some sort of treatment
Yes, I heard the same thing.
that they can put on there.
Yeah, just so for the public's benefit, this was on 2 different board of selectmen agendas, also this project. So by the time it went to public information session, it had gone through our review several times. So we did ask a lot of questions in those other meetings.
I did think it was a good question though about,
The sightlines.
well, the sightlines, I believe we had talked about, but the drainage issues, are we at risk of any runoff into the sound? And I know that's a concern of our Shellfish Commission because they are seeding.
Deep, I think, would take care of it.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
I think it was the decking drainage.
And the-
specifically.
Yeah, and
I think that's just an engineering problem to solve.
Yeah, so I think, with all the permitting that's involved in this project, it wouldn't move forward if those issues were not addressed. And the scientist who was at our public information session addressed those concerns. And I've reached out to our engineering firm with the questions that Mr. Schmaltz had, and I'll get some detailed answers and contact him as soon as but almost everything he asked was addressed at the public information session last week as well.
Yeah, I know the same thing. Yeah.
So I think that, with that, adding, the one scope change would be adding the stairs if the budget allows. Then I think we're comfortable proceeding.
The back stairs you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah.
And we would just move forward with that. So, all right, citizens' comments. Do we have any hands raised, Jeannie? Has anybody hung on? Okay. State your name. Jim?
Hi, it's Jim Schmaltz again.
Yes.
You've hung in this again. Very good.
Thank you for looking into that and look forward to the answers on it. The comment on this one was it was really disappointed and a little upset about the reaction to the bids for Academy. I think you guys need to go back and look at the referendum that we voted on and watch the presentations that you did. The referendum was for 15.9 minus the interest, bonding phase, permits, all of that. So that's already down because interest has gone up. And then you sold us that we would never spend near the 15.9 because you were getting $8 million in grants. So you can't just say, hey, we're spending 15.9 now. That's what you guys said we were going to do when you told us that we weren't going to be spending anywhere near that. And if you can't deliver the referendum with the features that you sold, it's not, well, let's just move forward and build this out over time. You've got 50 million in CIP for school improvements over the next 10 years. And then if you're going from now, we're going to spend what we were thought was going to be 8 or 9 million. Now you want us to spend 16 million plus possibly for a $20+ million community center. And then, there's environmental concerns now. You've got to really take into consideration that this project may not move forward. It may not be a viable project. And just because you guys are all laughing and happy about it, the town doesn't necessarily all want to pay that. You've got to be realistic on what your goals are and what you're spending.
So I appreciate your comments. Tonight was a preliminary discussion about how to move forward. We're going to have to get voter approval for any additional spending on the project. And tonight was a discussion of options, but thank you for your comments.
Yeah, but you've also are trying to say that, we agreed to spend 15.9. We didn't. We agreed to spend 15.9 minus the grants. Now you're looking back. If you're going to want to respend can you let me finish?
So I think we're thank you for your comments. It's normally not a back and forth, but I do want to make one comment for the record. When we did not know that we were going to get 4 million, potentially $8 million in grants. We hope to get grants. I never anticipated getting $4 million grant. We were hoping to get a couple $1 million in grants. It was never anticipated to be getting $4 million from the state. So we didn't have this grant. We had no grants in place when we went out to the public, but we said we were going to work really hard to get grants. We've been super successful, more successful than we thought.
So then you want us to pay you for getting those grants and just re-spend that money?
We cannot apply those grants to the project for additional spending without getting voter approval. So nothing's going to happen without voter approval. But with that, thank you for your comments. Are there any more hands raised, Jean?
One other quick thing.
We'll have to move on, please. Any other hands raised from the public? No? And with that, thank you very much. And I guess hearing no objection. So, thank you.